Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about something I think we've all heard, maybe even said to ourselves or others. Don't tell people about your problems. It's advice that sounds practical, almost stoic. But it's also a little sad, isn't it? It suggests that vulnerability is a burden, something to be hidden or downplayed. But I think there's more to this idea and maybe even a bit of wisdom within it, if we look carefully. I'm not here to say we shouldn't share our challenges. In fact, I've spent years researching how sharing our struggles connects us with others. But I do believe it matters how we share, who we share with, and why we're choosing to open up. So, if we're not telling everyone about our problems, that doesn't mean we're bottling them up. It means we're being intentional. It means we're seeking the right kind of support in the right spaces. Vulnerability is a powerful tool, but it's also an act of courage. And real courage means knowing where it's safe to be vulnerable and when it's okay to hold a little back. There's wisdom in knowing when we need to process our pain internally and when it's okay to let someone else hold part of it with us. Think about the people in your life. I bet you have a few trusted souls, your close friends, a family member, maybe even a mentor. These are the people who show up for you, who've earned the right to hear your story. With them, sharing your struggles isn't just okay, it's how you strengthen those bonds. It's where healing and growth take root. But then there are the others, the ones who might not know you so deeply or who might not respond with kindness or empathy. When we share too much with people who haven't earned our trust, it's like planting seeds in shallow soil. We might not find the understanding or compassion we're hoping for, and that can hurt. So don't tell people about your problems isn't about shutting down vulnerability, it's about respecting your own story enough to share it with people who can hold it with care. We're all in this together, but we're also each walking our own path. We each have to find what gives us strength, resilience, and hope. Sometimes that looks like reaching out, and sometimes it looks like sitting with our feelings, learning from them, letting them shape us in the privacy of our own hearts. So I'm going to challenge you today. The next time you feel weighed down by something heavy, take a moment and ask yourself, who do I want to share this with? Who can help me carry this? If the answer isn't immediately clear, it's okay. Trust yourself. Trust that you'll know when it's time to reach out and when it's time to hold close. Because sharing your story is a gift, both to yourself and to those who are worthy of hearing it. And as we honor that, we build a stronger, kinder, more courageous world together. Vulnerability is an essential part of human connection, but it's not something that should be shared freely with just anyone. There's a common misconception that being open with our struggles means throwing all caution to the wind, sharing personal details with anyone willing to listen. In reality, genuine vulnerability requires careful boundaries to be truly effective in healing. Without boundaries, our vulnerability can lead to feelings of exposure, misunderstanding, and in some cases, emotional harm. When we establish boundaries around our vulnerability, we're creating a sense of safety for ourselves, allowing us to be open without risking our emotional well-being. Boundaries help us decide when and with whom it's safe to share our struggles. They give us the space to protect our emotional core, sharing only with those who will respond with empathy, understanding, and respect. Vulnerability without boundaries can be like giving away a precious part of ourselves without ensuring it will be held carefully. In this way, boundaries serve as a filter, allowing us to identify the people in our lives who genuinely care for us and are willing to show up for us without judgment. Not everyone we encounter is equipped to handle our struggles with the compassion and understanding that true vulnerability requires. Boundaries help us recognize who is capable of holding space for us and who is not. When we share without boundaries, we risk exposing ourselves to people who may respond dismissively or worse, use our openness against us. Some people, intentionally or not, may diminish our experiences, respond with indifference, or even use what we share as fuel for gossip. This isn't to say we should go through life distrusting everyone, rather. It's a reminder that vulnerability is valuable and should be treated as such. It's not about building walls, but instead creating a protected space for ourselves. When we establish boundaries, we're better able to engage in meaningful, authentic interactions where our vulnerability is met with respect and support. Boundaries also help us avoid feeling overly exposed. Sharing personal struggles can be incredibly freeing, but if we overshare or open up to people who aren't prepared to support us, it can leave us feeling raw and vulnerable in a way that's far from empowering. We might find ourselves second-guessing our decision to open up or feeling regretful about revealing too much. These feelings can, in turn, erode our sense of self-trust, making us more hesitant to share in the future, even with those who are truly supportive. By setting boundaries, we protect ourselves from this cycle. We allow ourselves to be open in ways that feel safe, enabling us to build trust with ourselves as we navigate when and where it's appropriate to share. Healthy boundaries are also a means of cultivating self-respect. When we respect our own experiences and emotions enough to protect them, we're honoring our self-worth. We're recognizing that our struggles and stories are valuable and should be shared only with people who genuinely care for us and are willing to respond with empathy. Self-respect reinforces our sense of value and worth, making it easier to set boundaries in other areas of life as well. We learn to prioritize our own emotional health, understanding that boundaries are a form of self-care rather than isolation. Establishing boundaries around our vulnerability requires self-awareness and intention. It means being honest with ourselves about our needs, our limits, and our relationships. Not everyone deserves to hear our story, and not everyone is equipped to respond in a way that is supportive. By being selective, we're ensuring that our vulnerability remains a source of strength, rather than something that leaves us feeling unprotected. In a way, boundaries allow us to be both open and resilient. We can show up authentically without sacrificing our emotional well-being, finding the balance that enables us to connect deeply and meaningfully with others while staying grounded in our own sense of self. When it comes to sharing our personal struggles and stories, not everyone has earned the right to hear them. Vulnerability is powerful, but it's also delicate, and choosing to share it means opening a part of ourselves that needs to be handled with care. While it may feel tempting to be fully transparent with everyone in our lives, doing so without discernment can backfire, leaving us feeling misunderstood, invalidated, or even betrayed. This is why it's crucial to recognize who has truly earned the right to hear our story. Trust is the foundation upon which any meaningful sharing is built. Trust doesn't happen overnight, it's created slowly through consistent, compassionate, and mutual understanding. To share vulnerable parts of ourselves with someone who hasn't built this foundation with us can feel unsettling. Trustworthy people are those who have shown up time and time again, who have demonstrated that they're willing to listen without judgment, and who respect our boundaries. They are the people who respond with empathy and understanding rather than judgment or unsolicited advice. They validate our feelings even if they don't fully understand our experiences. These are the individuals who have shown they are emotionally invested in our well-being and have the capacity to hold our story with respect. Opening up to people who have not earned our trust can lead to a number of painful outcomes. For example, sharing personal challenges with someone who is dismissive or critical can make us feel small and invalidated. If they respond with indifference, we may find ourselves questioning the importance of our own experiences or wondering if we're overreacting. This type of interaction not only diminishes our struggle, but can also cause us to doubt ourselves, our emotions, and our worth. Sharing with the wrong people often leaves us feeling worse than before, eroding our sense of safety and making it harder to be vulnerable in the future. There are those who may seem supportive, but in reality have their own motives for listening to our struggles. Some people may use our vulnerabilities to boost their own ego or as material for gossip, a behavior that can be deeply damaging. Vulnerability requires a level of emotional safety, a space where we know our words will be kept in confidence. When we share with someone who cannot provide that safety, we risk having our experiences spread beyond our control or twisted into a narrative that doesn't represent us. Knowing that our story has been shared with others without our consent can be a betrayal that leaves lasting scars, making us wary of sharing openly in the future. Recognizing who has earned the right to hear our story is a skill that takes time to develop. It requires us to be aware of who genuinely shows up for us and who listens because they care, not because they're merely curious. People who are trustworthy don't just listen to us in times of struggle, they celebrate our successes and stand by us through all seasons. They have proven that they respect us, that they won't judge or belittle us, and that they're capable of being compassionate and accepting of our imperfections. When we choose to share our vulnerabilities selectively, we're honoring our own story. We're saying that our experiences are valuable, that our feelings deserve respect, and that we're not willing to expose ourselves in spaces where we may be met with disregard. By choosing to be vulnerable only with those who've earned it, we reinforce our self-worth and remind ourselves that we are worth protecting. This kind of intentional vulnerability builds a solid foundation for deeper connections, enabling us to be open without fear of being hurt. It also helps us preserve our emotional energy, as we're no longer expending it in spaces that aren't supportive. By safeguarding our vulnerabilities, we create an environment where we can share in ways that feel meaningful and safe. When we are intentional about who we let into our inner world, we empower ourselves to build relationships based on trust, mutual respect, and genuine understanding. This not only deepens our connections with others, but also strengthens our own sense of security, making it easier to be vulnerable in a healthy, balanced way. Being selective about sharing doesn't mean we're closing ourselves off or being inauthentic. On the contrary, it allows us to show up authentically in spaces where we know we'll be met with acceptance. When we choose to open up with people who have earned the right to hear our story, we're engaging in vulnerability that fosters connection rather than fear, growth rather than regret. This kind of discernment builds our resilience, helping us to develop and maintain meaningful relationships that uplift us rather than drain us. Choosing who hears our story is an act of self-respect and self-protection. It allows us to be open without sacrificing our emotional safety, trusting that the people who have earned our trust will hold our experience. Sharing our struggles with trusted people, those who show up consistently, listen deeply, and respond empathetically, can strengthen the bonds that hold our relationships together. It's an experience that goes beyond the simple act of talking about our problems. It's about feeling seen, valued, and supported in a way that empowers us to move forward. When we open up to people who genuinely care for us, we create opportunities for deeper understanding and emotional intimacy. It's in these moments that we often find the strength and reassurance we need, knowing we're not alone in facing life's challenges. Trustworthy relationships, those in which we feel safe sharing our vulnerabilities, don't happen overnight. They're built over time, with each interaction, shared experience, and moment of support reinforcing the foundation. When we share our challenges with people who have proven themselves to be trustworthy, we're not only allowing them to understand us better, we're also giving them a chance to support us in meaningful ways. In these exchanges, the other person often gains a deeper appreciation of our resilience, character, and courage, leading to a mutual strengthening of the relationship. They become more aware of our needs, and we come to recognize their reliability and compassion. Opening up about our struggles is a risk, but with trusted individuals, it's a risk that often pays off. They're the ones who create a safe space for us, where we can express our worries, fears, and doubts without fearing judgment. This security allows us to lower our guard, making it easier to be authentic. In a world that often encourages us to appear put together, these relationships offer a refuge where we can be our true selves, imperfections and all. This authenticity deepens the connection as we learn more about each other's true selves, and it becomes clear that our relationship is not built on appearances or facades, but on genuine care and understanding. When we share our struggles with people who are truly supportive, we also feel validated. Many of us, at one point or another, have doubted the validity of our own struggles. We may have felt that our feelings were too much or not important enough to share. But when someone listens to us attentively, validates our emotions, and reassures us that our feelings are real and worth acknowledging, it affirms our sense of self. It reminds us that we're not alone and that our experiences, no matter how big or small, matter. This validation strengthens our resilience, helping us face our challenges with renewed confidence and reminding us that we have people in our corner who care about us. Sharing with trusted people enables us to gain new perspectives. Sometimes, when we're caught up in our own challenges, it's hard to see the bigger picture. Trusted friends or loved ones can offer insights or suggestions that we might not have considered. They bring their own experiences, viewpoints, and empathy to the table, often helping us see a path forward that we hadn't seen before. Their perspectives can be a gentle reminder that what we're going through is temporary and that there's a way through it. They may also help us reframe our struggles, seeing them as opportunities for growth rather than insurmountable obstacles. This shared wisdom, coupled with their reassurance, can be incredibly grounding, helping us navigate our challenges more effectively. These trusted connections also have a reciprocal effect. When we allow others to support us, we're also deepening our capacity to support them. Vulnerability, when shared, fosters empathy and a deeper understanding between individuals. By opening up, we're creating a culture of trust in the relationship, signaling that it's a safe space for both parties to be real with one another. Our willingness to share our struggles often encourages others to do the same, creating a dynamic where support and understanding flow both ways. This reciprocity strengthens the bond, making the relationship a source of mutual strength and resilience. Trusted relationships provide a grounding force in our lives. They remind us that we don't have to carry everything on our own, that there are people who genuinely care about us and want to help. The presence of even one or two trusted individuals can make an enormous difference, offering us stability and comfort in times of uncertainty. They don't necessarily have all the answers, but their support reminds us that we're capable of facing our challenges. This reassurance often empowers us to keep going, knowing that no matter how difficult things get, we have a safety net in these relationships. These bonds, forged in moments of vulnerability, are some of the most meaningful connections we can create. They're the relationships that stand the test of time, rooted in genuine care and mutual understanding. By choosing to share our struggles with people who have earned our trust, we're not only supporting our own well-being, we're building connections that enhance our lives and provide us with strength, compassion, and resilience. Such relationships remind us that we're all human, all imperfect, and all deserving of support, creating a network of trust that enriches our lives in countless ways. Taking time to reflect before sharing personal challenges can be one of the most valuable steps in managing our emotions and navigating difficult situations. When we encounter hardships or experience intense emotions, there's often an impulse to talk about it right away, to get things off our chest and seek immediate comfort or validation. However, rushing to share without first processing our feelings can lead to confusion, miscommunication, and even unintended hurt. Reflection allows us to understand our emotions better, helps us clarify our thoughts, and ultimately makes our communication more intentional and productive. One of the primary benefits of reflection is that it gives us the opportunity to gain clarity on what we're really feeling and why. Emotions can be complex, especially when they're triggered by multiple factors. For instance, we might feel hurt, anger, and disappointment all at once in response to a specific situation, and without time to untangle these feelings, we risk sharing in a way that's messy or misaligned with our actual needs. Reflecting allows us to break down these emotions, understand their sources, and decide which aspects are worth sharing and which may be better to process on our own. This level of clarity helps us communicate more effectively and increases the likelihood that others will understand and empathize with what we're going through. Reflection before sharing also enables us to approach our challenges with a sense of purpose and direction. When we're clear about what we want to achieve from sharing, whether it's seeking advice, asking for support, or simply being heard, we can communicate our needs more directly. Often we share impulsively because we want immediate relief without fully understanding what kind of support we're seeking. This can lead to disappointment if the listener doesn't respond in the way we hoped. By taking time to think about what we need, we can be more intentional in our sharing and better communicate those needs to the person we're confiding in. This helps foster a more supportive and fulfilling exchange, as the listener is better equipped to respond in a way that genuinely helps us. Furthermore, reflection allows us to take a step back and view our challenges from a more balanced perspective. In the heat of an emotional moment, it's easy to feel overwhelmed or to see things in an all-or-nothing light. This is often referred to as emotional flooding, where intense emotions take over our ability to think rationally. By giving ourselves time to reflect, we allow those initial waves of emotion to settle, making room for a more grounded perspective. This doesn't mean minimizing our feelings, but rather creating space to assess the situation with a clearer mind. When we share from this balanced place, we're more likely to communicate in a way that invites understanding rather than escalating tension or misunderstanding. Reflecting before sharing can also help us identify any personal biases or assumptions that might be coloring our interpretation of a situation. Sometimes our reactions are influenced by past experiences or unresolved issues that are not directly related to the current challenge. By taking time to reflect, we can examine whether our feelings are a response to the present moment or if they're being intensified by unrelated factors. This self-awareness is crucial for sharing responsibly and fairly, as it allows us to distinguish between what's truly happening and what might be a projection of our own unresolved emotions. It enables us to approach the conversation with integrity, giving the other person a clear and honest representation of our experience. Reflection also helps us practice self-compassion. In moments of struggle, we're often hardest on ourselves, blaming ourselves for things that may be beyond our control or expecting ourselves to handle everything perfectly. When we take a moment to sit with our feelings and reflect, we create an opportunity to acknowledge our own humanity and the fact that it's okay to feel the way we do. This gentle acceptance can reduce the intensity of our emotions, making it easier to approach the conversation without a sense of desperation or shame. Instead, we're coming from a place of self-acceptance, which makes it easier for others to offer compassion and understanding in return. Taking time to reflect before sharing reinforces our sense of self-trust. When we're able to sit with our feelings and understand them on our own, we're building inner resilience. We're proving to ourselves that we can handle challenging emotions without immediately needing external validation or support. This doesn't mean we should never seek comfort from others, but rather that we don't need to rely solely on others to process our experiences. This inner strength is empowering and helps us approach future challenges with greater confidence. When we do choose to share, it's from a place of stability, and we're more likely to attract the kind of support that aligns with our needs. Taking time to reflect before sharing is a powerful tool for self-awareness, intentional communication, and emotional balance. It gives us the opportunity to understand our own needs, gain perspective, and approach conversations with purpose. By doing so, we create space for more authentic and supportive interactions, ultimately strengthening both our personal resilience and our connections with others. Protecting our vulnerability doesn't mean hiding or avoiding sharing our struggles. It's about respecting our own emotional space and knowing when, where, and with whom it's safe to open up. There's a common misconception that choosing not to share everything with everyone is a form of hiding or dishonesty, but that perspective overlooks the importance of emotional boundaries and the value of selectively sharing. In reality, setting boundaries around our vulnerability is a form of self-respect and self-care, allowing us to preserve our emotional energy and ensure that we're only exposing ourselves in ways that feel supportive and safe. When we choose to be selective about sharing, we're prioritizing our emotional well-being. Not everyone in our lives will respond to our struggles with the empathy and understanding that vulnerability requires. People have different capacities for support, and some may lack the sensitivity or trustworthiness needed to handle our openness with care. Sharing deeply personal struggles with people who may not understand or appreciate them can lead to feelings of regret, exposure, or even rejection. By choosing carefully, we avoid these unnecessary pains, ensuring that we share only with those who've shown that they can respond in ways that feel helpful and affirming. In this way, protecting our vulnerability is not about building walls, it's about creating healthy boundaries that allow us to connect deeply with others without sacrificing our own sense of safety. This selective sharing also protects us from the discomfort of oversharing. It's easy to feel a temporary release by sharing with someone immediately, especially during moments of heightened emotion, but oversharing can often leave us feeling exposed or embarrassed later on. By being intentional about when and with whom we share, we can avoid this emotional hangover. Instead of feeling regretful about sharing too much, we can maintain a sense of control over our narrative and preserve our emotional energy. This sense of control reinforces our sense of self-trust, knowing that we're capable of protecting our own well-being by making thoughtful choices about when to open up. Protecting our vulnerability encourages us to be mindful about our motivations for sharing. Sometimes we may feel compelled to share because we're seeking immediate validation, support, or relief. While there's nothing wrong with wanting these things, being aware of these motivations can help us check whether we're sharing for the right reasons. If we're opening up only to relieve our own discomfort or because we feel pressured to appear transparent, we may be doing ourselves a disservice. By understanding our motivations, we can decide if sharing truly serves us in that moment or if we're simply reacting to temporary feelings. This mindfulness enables us to make decisions that prioritize our long-term well-being rather than giving in to short-term impulses. Protecting our vulnerability also means respecting the process of emotional self-reliance. While support from others is invaluable, there's strength in knowing we can handle our emotions without immediately needing external validation. This doesn't mean isolating ourselves, but it does mean recognizing that some struggles can be processed privately before being shared. When we allow ourselves to sit with our emotions first, we give ourselves the chance to make sense of them independently. This self-reflection can deepen our resilience as we learn to trust ourselves to navigate difficult feelings. When we do, we're approaching the conversation from a place of self-assurance, not dependency, making it easier to communicate our experiences clearly and authentically. Respecting our own emotional boundaries is not about pushing others away, but rather about being discerning. It's a way of ensuring that we're only allowing people into our inner world who respect and value our experiences. By setting these boundaries, we're essentially creating a filtering system that helps us identify those who genuinely care and are invested in our well-being. This discernment strengthens our relationships as we're connecting with others in a way that feels mutually respectful and affirming. It also prevents us from feeling drained or hurt by sharing with people who aren't capable of supporting us in the ways we need. Protecting our vulnerability also contributes to our sense of self-respect. When we choose to share selectively, we're valuing our own experiences enough to recognize that they're not for public consumption. Our struggles, joys, and fears are personal and don't need to be laid bare for everyone to see. By honoring this privacy, we're reinforcing our own worth, showing ourselves that we don't need to seek validation from others to feel secure in who we are. This self-respect forms the foundation of a healthy relationship with ourselves, where we prioritize our own needs and well-being without feeling obligated to be transparent with everyone. Protecting our vulnerability allows us to approach relationships with greater authenticity and intention. By choosing carefully who we share with, we create a space for genuine connections that are built on trust and mutual respect. This kind of sharing is not about proving anything to others, but about fostering meaningful bonds that are supportive and understanding. Instead of feeling pressured to share everything, we can rest in the knowledge that we're honoring ourselves and our emotional needs. We're choosing to be vulnerable in ways that empower us, enabling us to connect without compromising our emotional safety. Choosing when to share our struggles and doing so thoughtfully can have a profound impact on how we move forward. The timing and environment in which we open up play a crucial role in shaping the response we receive and ultimately in how we feel about our vulnerability. Being strategic about when we share isn't about being overly cautious or guarded, rather it's about giving our emotions the respect they deserve and ensuring that we're prepared for the response we might get. When we're intentional about timing, we're setting ourselves up for interactions that are more likely to be supportive, constructive, and validating. In moments of high emotion, our instinct may be to vent immediately. We often feel a pressing need to unload our thoughts and feelings, seeking instant relief. However, sharing in the heat of the moment can sometimes lead to misunderstandings, especially if our emotions are intense or if we haven't yet fully processed what we're feeling. Expressing ourselves impulsively may result in saying things we don't mean or in a way that could be confusing to the listener. When we're overwhelmed, our words may come out rushed or muddled, making it harder for the other person to fully understand our experience. Taking time to reflect and allowing our emotions to settle before sharing can prevent this, enabling us to communicate more clearly and effectively when we do decide to open up. The environment in which we share is equally important. Opening up in a comfortable, private setting can make a world of difference. For instance, a busy or public setting may not be conducive to a vulnerable conversation, as distractions and interruptions can break the flow and make it harder for us to feel truly heard. Privacy allows us to engage fully in the conversation without worrying about being overheard or judged by others around us. It provides a safe space where we can focus on the person we're sharing with, and vice versa, enabling a deeper level of empathy and understanding. When we choose a supportive setting, we're not only making it easier for ourselves to open up, but we're also giving the other person a chance to respond thoughtfully. without the pressure of external distractions. Timing also means considering the emotional state of the person we're sharing with. Even the most supportive people have their own stresses and challenges, and if they're dealing with something significant in their own life, they may not be fully present or able to offer the empathy we're seeking. By being aware of their state, we're showing respect for their emotional capacity, acknowledging that timing matters not just for us but for them too. Waiting for a moment when both we and the other person are in a better headspace can result in a more meaningful and constructive exchange, allowing us both to engage fully without feeling drained or overwhelmed. Sharing thoughtfully also involves thinking about what we hope to gain from the conversation. If we're seeking specific advice, support, or validation, it's important to be clear about that before starting the conversation. Knowing what we need allows us to be more intentional about whom we approach and when we do it. For instance, if we're looking for problem-solving input, we might choose someone who tends to offer practical advice. If we're seeking empathy, we might wait until we can connect with someone who naturally listens and validates. This thoughtfulness helps ensure that our needs are met, reducing the likelihood of disappointment or feeling misunderstood. Choosing the right timing and setting also helps us feel empowered in our vulnerability. Rather than feeling like we're at the mercy of our emotions, we're taking an active role in managing our experience. We're saying to ourselves, I can handle this, and I'll share when it feels right. This sense of agency reinforces our resilience and self-trust. When we share from a place of readiness, we're more likely to walk away from the conversation feeling supported and understood rather than feeling exposed or uncertain. It gives us a greater sense of control over our narrative, empowering us to approach vulnerability as a choice rather than a reaction. Taking this kind of thoughtful approach also helps us cultivate stronger, more respectful relationships. When we're intentional about when and how we share, we're honoring both our own needs and those of the person we're confiding in. This mutual respect strengthens trust, creating a relationship dynamic where both parties feel valued and considered. The people we share with are more likely to appreciate that we're mindful of their emotional space and capacity, just as they are of ours. This approach builds a foundation for deeper connections, where vulnerability is a conscious choice rather than something that happens by accident or impulse. This intentionality around sharing allows us to reflect on what we've learned or gained from the experience. By taking our time, we can process what happened in the conversation and take away insights that help us grow. This might mean understanding our emotions more clearly, learning about our needs in moments of vulnerability, or gaining insight into our relationships. Each thoughtful sharing experience becomes a stepping stone in our personal development, reinforcing our emotional awareness and helping us make even more empowered choices in the future. In essence, timing our vulnerability isn't about suppressing our feelings, it's about respecting them enough to share them in ways that are likely to bring understanding and support. By being mindful about when, where, and with whom we share, we set the stage for interactions that are genuinely healing and uplifting, strengthening our resilience and deepening our connections with others. Thank you.